Hey, this is Bob Brooks, host of the Prudent Money Radio Show. Just got off the air, had a little bit of technical difficulty, so apologize for the audio quality. And in fact, we ended up losing. I had John Hupalo on today, a college expert, admissions expert, and it comes on once a month to talk everything college. And ended up getting cut off towards the end. So that happens every once in a while, but don't know why we had so many problems today. But it talked a little bit about what's been going on since the Supreme Court said no way to the student loan forgiveness, and talk about some of these programs and how you find out about some of these programs that are out there, and how it seems like President Biden is just canceling debt, 70, 100 million at a time, which is really interesting. That's all on today's program. If you got a question for me, please go to prudentmoney.com. You can send an email into info@prudentmoney.com, and we'll get you taken care of. If you want to talk about advisor services, I would love to talk to you about that and see how I could help you and your family reach your financial goals. This is Bob Brooks. Keep the faith.
Portions of KDKR programming do not necessarily reflect the views of this station, its management, or staff.
Prudent Money with Bob Brooks is sponsored by the Prudent Money Foundation on 91.3.
Well, as President Biden is slowly forgiving student loan debt, just a few million at a time, today we're going to take a look. Stay tuned for Prudent Money. Good afternoon. This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. Thank you so much for joining me today. You know I do appreciate it. Well, the Supreme Court says no, but President Biden continues to give student loan relief. Today, college expert John Hupalo is here with me today to get us caught up. I just find this, first of all, good to talk to you today, John.
Hey, Bob, great to be with you this afternoon. How are you?
I'm good. So, I just find this interesting, and is that the Supreme Court says, no, you can't do it. You can't forgive all this student loan debt. But every time you pick up you go to yahoo.com or any informational site, he's forgiving student loans for somebody. It just seems like he's kind of doing, 20 million here, 40 million here, and by the time he's done, he's going to have it all taken care of.
Yeah, well, Bob, we're getting near the election, right? We got to realize that we're starting to think about what the themes are going to be. So I thought it was really interesting. In the open, you said, is he forgiving a few million at a time? And I thought I misheard you. I thought you were going to say a few billion at a time, because that's kind of what it's come down to. You're right. If it's Wednesday, it must be Loan Forgiveness Day for the Biden administration. But
yeah, will it ever go away?
It won't. And the most recent is $130 million he announced last week for 7,400 borrowers for one of the schools in Colorado. And so this is we've talked about this. What's completely crazy about this whole loan forgiveness thing is that the politics of it have now run over the facts, right? So the president's plan that was struck down by the Supreme Court was basically to try to complete the campaign promises that started way back in 2016 about basically forgiving all student loan debt. Remember, that's what we're talking about for a long time. So, Biden came up with this plan. He said, we'll forgive up to $20,000 per borrower. It's going to cost, it was $400 billion, and it's going to be all great. And he was trying to rely on powers that he had during the whole COVID thing. And he said, this is a national emergency, and so therefore, based on my powers as president, I'm going to forgive this debt. And the Supreme Court basically said, sorry, you don't have the executive authority to run around. This is what they call a major question. There's a lot of money on the line. You just can't decide you're going to forgive the debt. So that was like one plan, and now that's sort of on one side of the goal line. And he has another plan, by the way, to try to get back at that. But for right now, they've got that other plan under wraps. But this other kind of leaking a couple $100 million here, $40 million there, all of this comes under other authorities that he has under the law. So he can, with the stroke of a pen, forgive some of these loans. And most of what he's done to date, and it's getting near something on the order of like 160 billion or something like that, some big number like that. But he's doing it, as you're saying, sort of piecemeal here and there, based on existing programs. The Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program is one of them. Then there's another program for borrowers who become totally or permanently disabled. You can forgive the loans under that. And then there's another one, and this is where they're really trying to get at it, quite honestly. If they say, look, if a borrower went to school, they took out a student loan, and the school somehow cheated them, they didn't give them the right degree, or the education to get a degree to get a job, or there was some kind of chicanery around like what the job placement rate or whatever that might be, that those borrowers were duped and therefore they should get their money back. And, I think there's an argument for some of that, but what's really something, and you told me that you want to talk a little bit about this. So I went back and I looked at this whole thing in Colorado. I was shocked to find out, Bob, this started in 2012. They're forgiving debt from borrowers from 2006 through July of 2020. So this was going on, started in 2012. There was a trial in 2017, a judgment in 2020. In 2023, they're forgiving debt. And I'm sitting there saying to myself, well, wait a minute. If they knew this program wasn't good 10 or 15 years ago, why did they let it continue to the point that they now have to go and forgive all this debt? This is the government at work. It's just so sad to see it play out this way, but this is what we're dealing with.
Just having about to have two boys in college, and I can see what a racket it could be, and how they can set up some kind of, I don't know, I guess you call it fraud, but talk a little bit about, just so that people get an idea of what happened at College America in Colorado.
What happened is that the school went out and they said, look, we're going to educate you for these particular programs. And, oh, by the way, our graduates make X dollars. They're making, I don't know if this is the number they were advertising, but it was a very large number, well in excess of the $35,000 or $40,000 that most graduates were making. They were probably saying you can make $75,000 if you graduate. And we're going to say that our placement rates were very high. I'm saying these numbers. They're probably not what was in the lawsuit, but they were probably saying we have graduation placement rates. So people who graduate are going to get jobs, 80% of them, 90% of them, whatever the number might be. And the other thing, apparently, that they did is they said, well, by the way, if the federal government loans are not enough for you, we have this private loan program, and it's going to be very affordable. And we have very low default rates. And the one number that I do remember is that they said they had very low default rates when, in fact, their student loan defaults were at about 70%.
Oh, man.
So this is a school that was not doing the right thing for students.
Okay, so the administration is implementing some new repayment plan called the Saving on a Valuable Education, SAVE plan. And sound like you got your hands full there.
I'm sorry, Bob. I didn't hear what you just said. You broke up there. Yeah. I didn't catch any of that.
I said it sounds like you got your hands full there.
That's my security system in the background. Yes.
Saving you from the UPS man, probably.
Exactly.
Okay, so the administration is implementing a new affordable repayment plan called the Saving on a Valuable Education, or SAVE plan. Talk a little bit about that and what's going on with that. It's supposed to impact about 804,000 borrowers.
Yeah, Bob, this is one of those things I read about this SAVE plan. I said, gee, this kind of rings a bell to me. They were talking about this a while ago. So I went back and I looked, and they used to call it the revised pay-as-you-earn plan, the revised pay plan. And I was thinking to myself, I really hope one of Bob's boys is in some major that allows him to name acronyms for the government. Because when you come up with these fancy names like SAVE, it sounds so much better, very good, valuable education and all that.
But again, it's a warmed over program that already existed. So there's a program in place that said, look, if a student has discretionary income, we're going to take 10% of it under this pay program. So that sounded pretty good. And by the way, we'll forgive it in 20 years. The Biden administration came back and said, look, even that is too onerous. We're going to reduce the required payment amount from 10% of discretionary income to only 5% of discretionary income. And they also changed the ability for students to qualify. So students now who are earning less than 150% rather than 125% of the minimum earnings will be eligible for these programs. So they broadened the eligibility, and they're going to make it much easier to have these payment plans forgiven. So that's their goal. And again, it's all along the line of trying to say to borrowers, you got yourselves into this debt. Now we're going to make it super easy for you to repay it. And they have an ability now also to go and have the loan totally forgiven. If the balance was less than $12,000, they could pay for 10 years and then have it forgiven. If it's more than $12,000, they have a sliding scale. But this whole idea that the government's going to lend you money, you're going to pay back some part of it, probably not all, and they'll forgive it on the back end, is turning the student loan program into a quasi-grant program in front of this payment stream. So, again, this is very much in line where the administration has been previously. There are 9 different pay-as-you-go type programs that have been tried over the last 10 or 12 years or so. This will be the most recent to come online.
So let me ask what I think is a fair question. If I'm a college graduate or been out of school for a while, how do I know that there's a good one, some type of a plan that I can dial into and end up getting some of this forgiven? I mean, it just goes on and on and on and on, and I just know that there's no way that I guess it's the Department of Education is keeping everybody up on what's going on.
They're not, and they have a number of student loan servicers that they rely on for this, and then it's a really great foil for them, because what happens is if the program is not perfectly administrated, then they come back to the servicer and say, well, you messed up our program on us, so we're not really in the driver's seat of that. But the reality is they dictate to the student loan servicers how all these payment plans have to work. So the answer to your question, which is a great one, and we talk about this almost every show, is that the first step always is to contact the student loan servicer for the student's loans. And you can find that if you go to studentaid.gov. So if your listeners are in this situation, they want to know, do I qualify for this or don't I? I don't know who my loan servicer is. Go to studentaid.gov, and there's a page there called My Aid page. And the government website is actually chock full of all kinds of good information. And they want to be helpful in pushing the students into the right service area. And so that's the best way to figure all of that out. They want to make sure that if you are eligible for these programs, whether Biden has done it on his own or the Congress has set these programs up, whatever it is, they try to use their website as the place for students to start that path. Of course, if a student knows who their servicer is, if it's Nelnet or Mohila or any of the others that they are sending, well, they haven't sent payments in a while, but they're soon going to start, they can contact their student loan servicer, and the servicer will go through their situation with them and tell them which program they might be eligible for.
So have you heard, as we get closer to the date, that all this cranks back up again and you have to make your payments and interest starts accruing and all that type of thing? Have you heard anything just through the channels that you check in with, any new possible problems or things about that they're concerned about going to pop up? Because this is, as you and I have talked, this is a huge undertaking.
It is, and there's plenty of concern. In fact, one of the initiatives that the Biden administration is talking about is this. They're talking about it as an on-ramp. And the on-ramp that they've devised is say that if students somehow don't make a payment, they're delinquent, whatever it is, that they're not catching on fast enough that they actually have to start making the payment. So the way this is going to come out, starting October 1, the interest is going to start accruing again on their loans. And then starting October 1st, they're going to have to start making those payments. And so what the Biden administration has said is we're going to have this on-ramp. And what the on-ramp means is if you don't get in the flow and you miss a payment or two payments for the first year, for the whole first year of this program, the student loan servicers are not going to report any delinquencies or defaults to the credit rating agencies. They're going to give the students an opportunity to get themselves settled and figure out how they're going to get the cash flow back out of their paychecks and back to the student loan servicers. I saw a statistic the other day that said something on the order of the average payment for a student loan is around $350 per month. And so students for the last, these graduates since 2020 have not been asked to make that payment. So now they're going to try to find, in effect, another $4,000 out of their budgets that they've been spending elsewhere. They're going to have to recalibrate that and figure out how they're going to do it.
It really struck me. I in prepping for our conversation today, I came across a statistic that brought up a question in my mind. 44 million Americans owe $1.6 trillion in student loan debt. So there's 44 million Americans who we're talking about. The ones that things just are not working out for, or the systems failed them, or they just didn't pay, or whatever the situation might be, is only 7 million. Now, I know 7 million is a lot of people, obviously, but out of 327 million people in this country, it makes me wonder if that 7 million that are in default is, are we making a big deal about this whole problem?
Yeah, Bob, the numbers are staggering sort of on all different sides. So I'm with you. And right now, when I read these articles day after day, week after week, the numbers keep jumping all around as well. And I think what's happening is that the government is not sure what's going to happen with this repayment program. They're not sure how many students are going to qualify or graduates are going to qualify and actually come into the programs. And you asked the question before, and the answer is I think there's a lot of praying going on right now that the messages are going to get out there and the students are going to start making the payment. And if they don't, they have this on-ramp. And then in 6 months from now, they're going to have to figure out whether or not they've done enough to try to get the students back on the repayment. We've talked about this once before. We talk about 20% or so default rates in these programs, and that's very high, obviously. But that also means that 80% were making the payments on time. And so I'm hopeful that with the millions of students who've had their loans forgiven in the past couple of years, arguably those are the ones who were at the highest default rates, maybe we will see some significant improvement in those repayment rates once the students get back in the habit of making these payments on the loans.
Let me ask you this. If you're one of those 7 million in default, have they put any type of program together to where you can get back current again?
No, Bob, I'm sorry, I didn't hear that question.
Oh, sure. Let me try it again. We're actually having some audio issues. If you're one of those people who are in default, you were in default before COVID, and is there any type of program available that can get you back current again?
Yeah, the short answer to that is there are programs in place, and again through the student loan servicer. They'll come back and they'll say, you've been in default. Here's what you owe. Let's reset that payment schedule. What program? Which of these? That one time the 7 or 8 or 9, but now this brand new program that's going to start. How is this going to help you? And when you think about it, when you get enrolled in a program, you have a job, and they say to you, we're only going to take 5% of your income for this loan, and guess what? If we didn't have this program, it might be 10 or 15 or more percent because you have so much debt. When you talk about capping it at 5% and then offering forgiveness on the back end, the reality is a lot of those students should be able to make those payments. If they have a job, They might have to cut down on some other part of spending in their life, but 5% to pay off this loan and then have it forgiven after some number of years, it feels like there's this attempt to try to placate the borrowers and help them make some amount of repayment on the loan should be helpful. And we'll have to see how the statistics play out in the next year or two. But I would think that, again, the sheer number of borrowers who had loans forgiven, either through public service loan forgiveness or this borrower defense that we've been talking about or some of these other programs, you would hope that the large number of the most delinquent, the most defaulted borrowers, that they've been washed out and that the borrowers who have a chance to pay will actually start paying.
This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money radio show. Today with me, John Hupalo, a college expert, comes on every month, the first Wednesday of the month, and talks everything about college, one of your biggest investments that you'll make. If you want information about John, go to mycollegecorner.com. Excellent website. You can get a lot of great information. You know, I think we all know it's about politics, and I think it will be interesting to see what the Biden administration for re-election, how they try to make this look much bigger than it is, or how they take these college statistics to show what they did while in office. And I think I just lost John. Maybe John will call. Maybe John will call back. I don't know if you're hearing what I'm hearing, but it's the signal from the radio station is really pretty bad. It's not their fault. It's just the internet. Sometimes it happens that the lines happen that way. But hopefully John will come back and we'll be able to wrap up this interview. He always has great information, and would love to finish up on that. You know, it is interesting to me. There's a couple of takeaways from President Biden and all the things that he's put so much focus on college education and trying to relieve the average student and trying to fix the problem. And to me, I just jotted down, if they would come in, and I believe they would save way more money by doing this, is take maybe low interest loans across the board, 1%, maybe 2%, zero fee loans, so they're not charging fees for people to pay for them. And then, of course, you've got the income-driven repayment forgiveness plans, and surely there's a way to simplify that. I think I heard John say there's 8 or 9 of them. How do you decipher that? And then I think so extremely important is that defaulted accounts are given a second chance. And then implement, talking about ramping up to something, implement a 7-year program by the time they get to year 7, that it makes it harder to get 100% of college taken care of in a loan. I mean, I think that is, I just always been amazed how you can, as a parent, sign up for a loan for your child and just stick 100% in the box, and they'll pay for everything. That's nice until you get the bill at the end of school. And of course, what's real interesting is that since 2020, anybody that is on student loans and anybody who is paying or has student loans have not had any interest accumulate on their loans, and which is a pretty good deal. But I think that they've got to do something about, and they can't do it all at once because there's still people depending upon this, and I get that, is to roll out a program, though, that you just can't get by the stroke of a pen, and they're not even looking at anything credit-wise. I mean, you have to have pretty awful credit, bankruptcy, defaults, that kind of thing, to not get these loans. But what it'll be interesting to see. Oh, the two things I was going to say. That's the first thing. Second thing is that so much for checks and balances when you think about how, and this isn't just President Biden, this is all, you can go back many different presidential administrations, how they have the ability to change things with with the stroke of a pen. I think that really does need to change and be something different. This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. If you had a question for me, please go to the website at prudentmoney.com and send it in, because we are all out of time. Till we do meet again next time, keep the faith and have a great rest of the day.